Okay. I welcome you on my short presentation. My name is Miroslav and I'm a software developer and consultant on the .NET platform. And last time I'm focused on Microsoft Azure, and for my contribution in this area I've been awarded as Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. And today I will talk about two services in Microsoft Azure. I will talk mostly about Diagnostics, and the two services you can see here about Application Insights and Azure Alerts. I have decided to talk about these services because you can use it, all of you. In fact, these services are for free, and in some cases you can pay, but mostly they are for free. And the second thing is, it doesn't matter you are hosting your application in Microsoft Azure, on Amazon, or on-premise. It's up to you. So that's why. So I just switch the slide. Let me start with the Application Insights. Application Insights is quite simple tool or service in Microsoft Azure. This service works pretty simple. If you install SDK or some packages into your application, depends on your favorite programming language. So in case of .NET, you will download NuGet packages. In case of PHP, you need to go to GitHub, download some packages, scripts, and include it into your application. And once you have your code in the application, you need to create Azure Application Insights in the Azure environment. And after deploying your application, the Application Insights will collect the telemetries from your application. There is one difference between Application Insights and, for example, I can say some simple logging tools like Log4net or JLog. Is here someone using Log4net or JLog? Nlog? Okay. Here is one great thing. Once you deploy your application, all the telemetries will be collected automatically. You don't need to have to do anything, right? So the Application Insights will collect the exceptions from your application, from the server side, from the JavaScript. Application Insights will collect requests, dependencies, and many other things. I will show you a short demo how it looks on the Microsoft Azure after you set up all this tooling, right? So I have Application Insights service here. It's prepared and it's bound to my personal homepage. And right now I'm on the overview page. I have some overview graphs here. Everything is prepared. You don't need to create these graphs. They are automatically prepared. So you can see the server response time in a time. You can see the failed request and so on. When I click on the graph, the graph leads me into another blade. And when I click on the failed request, I see some details that are relating to failed requests. So some operations and so on. Great thing is live stream. If you imagine you want to deploy your application, sometimes you want to find the best time for deploying, because you don't want to deploy your application when many users is on your website. So you are interested in the traffic, and this service has near real-time traffic monitoring. So when I will go on my personal homepage and click on some pages and go back, so here you can see the traffic in near real time. There is just a delay about 1 second. I will continue with failures. If you have some exceptions in your application and you know exactly the time when the exception happened, so you can use the time range and you can choose the exact time and find the exceptions. But sometimes you just want to have some overview about your exceptions. So this is right here. The exceptions are grouped into the problems. The typical problem could be null reference exception or argument exception. So in this case, I decide to take a look on a block index page, and here are concrete occurrences of this exceptions. You can see here is the response code 500. I can open the detail, and I can continue, and I can be leading to the call stacks, and you can see the exception here. And now I can open the call stack. So with the call stack, I know exactly the line where is the problem, and you know, this is just an exception. I know that something went wrong in my application, but I don't know on what page. So I can continue, go back on this slide, and here is all available telemetry for this operation. When I click here, I see again the exception is here. It's the same exception like before. And here is the request. Here is the source of the exception. So now I know that the exception occurred on the block index. So it was the exception on the server side. Now I will show you the exceptions on the, we can say, front end or in JavaScript especially. So I will use the browser, and here is many informations about my users and about what kind of browser user use and so on. But I choose browser exceptions, and here is list of the exceptions. So for example, the first one is cannot read property trim. I can go on the detail, and here you can see the exact place where is the exception. It's in default.js. Again, I know about the place where is the error, but on the other hand, default.js I have linked into almost all the pages in my application, so it's quite strange that I have just 7 exceptions here. So again, I can use the function all available telemetry for this operation. And here's the exception, and again, I see the page view, the source of the exception. And really, when I will go on this page, it's quite difficult with one hand. Click. And open the developer tools. So here's the exception. Exactly like you saw. Another great feature is performance. Sometimes you have a time and you want to improve the performance of your application. And the first thing you need to know is what operations are slow. So on this overview you can see all these operations. They are sorted by the average response time, and now I know that this is my big issue because 6 seconds and 24 times, it's quite bad. So I can try to find a reason why is this endpoint so slow. And I have, for example, calls to remote dependencies, because application insights are able to tell me what dependencies I have in my request. It could be SQL queries, it could be queries to the storage, to another APIs, and so on. In case of page views, it could be AJAX requests, for example. And when I scroll down here, you can see here's many SQL queries into my database. So that's the source of the bad performance on the first side. And sometimes you can click on the dependency and you can see the whole SQL query. Sometimes you see just this command. Last thing in application insights is the availability. You can take a look on availability of your website from various locations. In this case, I can create simple web test. And this web test, it's just a request to my website. So I can choose one URL, and this is the primitive URL ping test. And the test frequency is 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes, Azure Application Insights will send a request to my website. And I can choose some locations here. So I can remove these US locations and choose from some data centers here in Europe. And once I have defined this test, I can take a look on the availability of my website. I see, in my case, I have a blog and homepage here. And I see availability of my website from all these locations I have defined before. When something went wrong, here will be a red point, and I can click on the point and I will see the request and the response, and I can read what happened. So you will see something like this, but here will be some exception. So that's quite good. If you have time, you can go into the Azure portal, you can find the exceptions, you can find problems in your application, you can think about the performance. But sometimes you want to know immediately when something went wrong in your application. And that's why the Azure Alerts exists. And let's imagine you have some services. We can talk about the Azure App Service or the Azure SQL. Every service you have has some typical metrics. So in case of Azure App Service, which is able to host some web pages, you are interested in the CPU percentage or the memory percentage. So let's say we are interested in a CPU percentage. And when I have some on-premise solution, I have just one computer or a virtual machine, I want to know that I have just, I'm over the 60% with my CPU, for example, in the last 10 minutes. So I can define the alert, and Azure Alert, and I can tell I will have some threshold, for example, 80%. And once the metrics will be over the threshold, I can get an email or a webhook. Again, I will show you a short demo. Just for my information, do you know the webhooks? Who knows it? Okay, so for the others, webhook is, I think, very powerful because, okay, if you get an error and you can receive some email, that's quite good, but let's imagine you want to get an SMS message to your phone. So what you can do? You can define HTTP endpoint in Azure App Service, and once some error will happen in your application, Azure will send a post request to the endpoint with some JSON body. So you can deserialize the JSON and you get all the information you need to know about the failure. So you will have their name of the alert, the threshold, and the condition. All the information you see here, you will have in the post body. So I will create a simple test, or maybe I'll just show you how it looks. In Application Insights is item alerts. In fact, this item you can find in most services in Microsoft Azure. It's available in App Service, SQL, storage, and so on. And I can add new alert. I change resource to components, and here is a list of the metric I can use for this service, so for the application insights. I can choose, for example, server exceptions. And now I see almost real time the exceptions in a time. Change the threshold, for example, for 90. And I see the threshold here. And I can send the emails to administrators or contributors of my subscription, or I can add some additional administrator emails. And here's the webhook. This is the HTTP endpoint. Last thing I will show you is an overview of all the alerts, because I believe you don't want to go through all the services and find the alerts. So here's a monitor, and on a monitor I can choose all subscriptions I have. And now Azure is loading all the alerts I have defined before. So it takes a while because there is about 6 subscriptions, and so you can see all the alerts here. I can manage it on one place. When I want to define new alerts, they are based on the metrics, I can do it again here. I don't have to go to all the services. I can choose the concrete subscription, continue with resource group, resource type, for example, SQL database, and choose some metrics I want to manage. Okay, so it was just a short overview. I've talked about application insights and Azure alerts because it's something you can use, and it doesn't matter on your favorite programming language. You can write code in C#, in PHP. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. But in Microsoft Azure is many another great diagnostic tools. So if you want to try, it's for free. You can try it, and you will see. Okay, if you have some questions, you can ask or write to my email. It's up to you.
Please raise your hand if you have any question. I will bring you the microphone.
You can ask his check-in as well.
How Azure knows about those SQL queries?
What exactly do you mean about the SQL?
You had some metrics about how many queries to database you made?
Yeah, the question is how you can explore the SQL queries and how many SQL queries you have in a metrics, or
like is it somehow automatically reported, or you must? Yeah.
Okay, so your question is this collected automatically?
Yeah.
Yes. You just install the SDK into your application, and there is package with many collectors, and the collectors are able to collect the requests and the dependencies. So application insights knows that you have requests and the dependencies under the requests to the SQL database. So yes, it's automatically collected from your application. It's okay for you, or?
No, like in PHP, for example, how would I make it?
Okay, I showed you that it's SQL on the Microsoft SQL server. I don't know how it works in case of PHP. You know, there is another kind of package, so you need to try it, because I know that in case of PHP you will use MySQL probably, right? So I cannot tell you right now. So take a look on the documentation how it works in case of PHP.
Any other questions?
Hey, Well, there's quite a bit of information that is transferred to the Azure service. Is this something you would run on a production server? Like, does it impact the performance a lot or not?
Yeah, so your question is about the performance of the application insights when you deploy the package into production. So almost no impact, because the telemetries are bundled into some packages and they are sent asynchronously on a separated thread into the application insights. So don't worry about the performance.
You said that this can be used with other services than Azure. Do you have some experiences, for example, with Amazon Web Services and Insights?
Okay, the question is, can I use it on another services than Azure? I have experience it just with on-premises solutions. It's the same principle, and in case of Amazon, it's again the same principle. The difference, I think the big difference is just between the programming languages, but it doesn't matter on the hosting. So if you will have some web server with IIS, so no problem.
Any other question?
There was AngularJS logo among backend technologies. Can you explain it?
You saw Angular? On the slides. Yeah, because I talked about front-end and back-end technologies. In case of Angular, we are talking about JavaScript, and you can collect telemetries from the JavaScript as well, right? So it's the similar principle. You have just some JavaScript code you need to paste into your JavaScript, and the telemetries are again collected from the front-end side. So Angular and Node.js is everything the same. So in JavaScript.
Hi, you said it was free. Which version actually? Are we talking about the on-premise solution or the cloud solution, and under what conditions is it free?
Okay, this service is at the present time in a preview version. It's about 2 years in preview, in fact. And it means there is no SLA defined right now. This service is for free if you send maximally 5 million data points into the Microsoft Azure. You can imagine that every data point is, for example, a request of 1 telemetry, right? So you can send 5 million telemetries into the Microsoft Azure. So most of you, I don't think you will send more than 5 million telemetries. You can pay in case you want to continuously export the data from the application insights. So in this case, you need a paid version. In all other cases, it's free. And in fact, if you will collect more than 5 million telemetries, you can use some telemetry processors and filter the requests. Because imagine you have many requests, for example, for O4, for the web pages, and you are not interested in this kind of errors, so you can you know, take it to the trash.
So thank you, Mirek, for a great presentation. And if you have any other questions, you can ask.